It's the Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
The socialization of transportation, education, energy, housing, and water, what it means is that government controls it through rules and regulations.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
Under this guise of bipartisanship and nonpartisanship, it's actually tapping down the truth.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
On an equal field in the battle of ideas, mistruths and misconceptions is getting us into a world of hurt.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Indeed, let's have a conversation, and welcome to our number 2 of the Kim Monson Show. Thank you so much for joining us. You're each treasure, you're valued, you have purpose. Today, strive for excellence. Take care of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. My friends, we were made for this moment. Thank you to the team that I work with, Producer Joe, Producer Luke, Zach, Echo, Charlie, all the people here at Crawford Broadcasting. Happy Monday, Producer Joe.
Happy Monday, Kim.
And in studio with me is my good friend Kurt Gerwitz. He is a business and finance professor. And gosh, we've got a lot to talk about regarding the averting of a government shutdown, right?
Yeah, well, here we are again.
Here we are again, and we'll be here again because they just keep kicking that can down the road.
Yes, I'll be here. So they passed a 45-day budget.
Wow.
So I'll see you again, Kim.
Yeah.
We'll come back in and we'll do it all over again.
Yes, we will. So, yes, Kurt Gerwitz. And I want to say thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show. And thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their sponsorship of the show as well. Check out the website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You will get first look at our upcoming guests as well as our most recent essays. There are 2 that we rolled out. The first was with Rick Turnquist's most recent essay on, let's see, now I got to remember what it is.
One was on the economy and the other one was on gender.
It is. So I had it exactly wrong, I think it is. Democrats and sexuality. Okay, there we go. And the other one, and that's by Rick Turnquist. And then the other is by Nephi Cole, who is with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and it's regarding the rifle, which is super interesting. So be sure and check those things out. Last week was our Colorado premiere of A Climate Conversation. And want to make sure that we say thank you to both Rockley's Event Center. Barb Jensen did a fabulous job. And if you're going to do an event, Rockley's Event Center out at 8555 West Colfax is a great place to do that. And then also a great sponsor of the show, and he was out there with his camera, and that was Glenn Jansen of Jansen's Photography. Glenn and Mary are true entrepreneurs. Mary was integral as well in making the event come off. And so whether or not you're needing, and these are such great memories and the treasures, and that is family portraits, portraits of children, senior portraits, or get that photo for your business or political career. Jansen Photography, that's JANSSEN photography.com is the place to go. So be sure and check that out. And let's see. Oh, the big vote by the Republican Colorado Central Committee on opting out of the open primaries. And as you really look at what happened regarding these open primaries in Colorado, Kent Thiry, who has been wanting to change elections, I would say, and change elections so that it will be very difficult that people that really want to preserve and conserve this whole idea of America, that all men are created equal with these rights from God of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, will make it more and more difficult for people with those values to get elected. And one of the things, he put well over $2.5 million into that open primary question. And in it, it was such a high bar to opt out. It was 75% of all the members of the Central Committee. And even though, and this is pretty remarkable, 259 members of the Central Committee voted to opt out. 143 and a half, I wonder who the half was. Come on, step up to the plate. Voted no on that. The yes was 64.3%. And in this country, where the radical activist left is just trying to always have democracy, which is 50% plus one, which that can actually devolve into
mob rule.
Mob rule, yes. Here, this is pretty remarkable. So let's see. A couple of things. Again, Kurt Gerwitz is in studio. Our word of the day is insatiable. And basically, it's impossible to satiate or satisfy. Very greedy. And I just keep thinking of all of the government entities that want more and more taxes. And I said the insatiable appetite for government, cities, counties, school districts, and park districts, etc., to increase taxes will ultimately tax many people out of their property. Quote of the day is from Friedrich August von Hayek, also known as F.A. Hayek. He was an Austrian-British economist and political philosopher, made contributions to economics, political philosophy, psychology, intellectual history, and other fields. You know what? I don't know if I told you this, Producer Joe, because I think this is, I need to look really quick, make sure I have my economists. There is a very easy read that I would highly recommend everyone, and it is Economics in One Lesson. Oh, no, it's by Henry Hazlitt. I got my H's mixed up. It's by Henry Hazlitt. So I ordered that for you, Producer Joe, for you and Producer Luke. I figured maybe next month we'll have a discussion on that. And I also ordered Bastiat's The Law. So the three of us can read that as well. So that is forthcoming, Producer Joe.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Okay, let's see. We're going to be talking with Kurt Gerwitz. He's a finance and business professor here in segments 2 and 3, focusing on that. But we have these important discussions because I work with many great sponsors. And I'm talking with Roger Mangan with the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team. And Roger, you suggested that we discuss this topic, comparative negligence. I don't even really know what that is.
Well, if you have an accident, we're in a car now, we're talking about car insurance, so if you're in an accident, and whatever the circumstances may be, unless it's clearly you're stopped at a stop sign, you're waiting there and someone rear-ends you, chances are it's going to be 100% the other party's fault and they'll admit it. But if you're moving and the other car is moving and hits you, comparative negligence can come into play. So some tidbits we haven't discussed before in your program, Kim, would be how does that work? Colorado is a modified comparative negligence state as opposed to a pure comparative negligence state. So, for example, there are 12 states in the District of Columbia that utilize pure comparative negligence as the basis for assigning liability. And Arizona, Alaska, California, Florida, Kentucky fall into that category. Modified comparative negligence, to confuse the matter even more, there is a different interpretation of modified comparative negligence. I am not an attorney. I'm not going to get into the legal what-fors or questions related to this. I'm giving you a general description. So if you have an accident, please do not get out of the car, exchange information, waiting for the police, which, by the way, rarely come anymore unless there's some bodily injury involved. So take pictures. Be sure that you are saying to them, don't say anything to them about it being your fault, because you don't know comparatively how the claim will flow in the process. So you exchange information, take photos, call the police, or at least file a counter report. And a counter report is the police won't show, so you have to go to the jurisdiction where that accident occurred and file a report over the counter. So it's called a counter report. Locate witnesses if there are any around. Very important, because it's your word against the other party's word. And who really determines the comparative negligence? Once a claim is filed with Company A and Company B, both adjusters look at the facts as they're presented, and from a police report, that would be a big help if they were there. They make a determination on comparatively who should have done what to minimize or avoid this accident. So there's rarely an accident that is 100% the tortfeasor's fault. Tortfeasor would be the one that committed the situation, the liable party. So you end up waiting for the adjusters to work it out. And by the way, if the adjusters can't work it out, there's a system in place called arbitration, where let's say it's American Family and State Farm. Those two companies would submit to a group of other non-involved insurance companies, and that group of 2 or 3 people would make a decision as to breaking the tie and comparative negligence. So there are systems in place. So anyway, beware as a consumer, and call your insurance agent, get some more clarification, or your attorney if you want. And by the way, one of the attorneys I work with and refer a lot of business to is a guy named John Monson. He's been in Denver a long time, and I think it's important to deal with somebody who is very good at what they do. And John falls into that category.
Well, and that's a great endorsement, Roger. Boson Law is a relatively new sponsor of the show, and I really excited to work with him. And every one of the sponsors that I work with, they strive for excellence. They want to serve their clients well. And so, Roger Mangan, I'm so thrilled to have your team as a sponsor. And people can reach you at 303-795-8855. Like a good neighbor, the Roger Mangan team is there.
Thank
With
you,
the
Kim,
limited
very much.
number of
We
homes
appreciate
in the
being a
Colorado
sponsor.
Front Range market, Karen Levine can help you achieve your home buying or selling vision. Karen has the right connections, technology, and strategies to help you buy or sell your home or to purchase a new build. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or want someone to take the wheel, or you just need a second opinion, you can rest assured the RE/MAX Realtor, Karen Levine, is the right agent for you. Call Karen Levine at 303-877-7516. Karen is the trusted professional who strives for excellence. That number is 303-877-7516.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of The Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We are an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. And in studio with me is Professor Kurt Gerwitz. And he is a finance and business professor. And I don't know if I told you this, that I'm doing this, Professor. But that is Dr. James Lyons Weiler has created this, it's called IPAC-EDU. And Dr. Jack is the founder of the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge. Through the whole COVID thing, and he and I have really come together, I would say, in our support of the Constitution. He's a New York liberal. You know, I'm a Kansas conservative, but we've realized we've come together through this whole COVID thing. He is an avid supporter of RFK Jr., which, I heard this weekend that RFK Jr. is going to run as an independent. Did you hear that?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, that party, the Democrat Party, really, wouldn't give him wouldn't let him have a voice, wouldn't give him a microphone, wouldn't debate. Yeah. They really shuttered him out. So imagine that, like this. So that's what happens when.
Could be interesting. So it's going to be interesting. I mentioned it in the first segment. Also, the opt-out vote was to have Republicans vote in Republican primaries, Democrats vote in Democrat primaries, and the central committees of each of the parties needed to vote on that. That big election was this last Saturday, and interestingly enough, it was a significant vote to opt out, but not that 75% benchmark, which would be impossible to get to, which the writers engineered it that way. So it was yes to opt out, 259, no, 143.5. Again, I'm find that interesting what the half was. But
how is there a half vote? That's a real question.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, but it was well over 60%, which I think is significant. So, but was not enough, and so now we'll continue to see that it'll make it more and more difficult to have people that I think really understand and want to conserve this American idea. I think it'll be more difficult to get them elected because one of the big, I'm now calling them the Republican consultant operatives. And they have controlled this Republican Party here in Colorado for many years. The veil is coming off, Kurt Gerwitz, on what is occurring with that. And so I don't know what's going to happen on all this, but people are showing their hands. In fact, when Mac Vadum in the first hour was mentioning that there are people that absolutely hate Donald Trump that are trying to keep him off the ballot, it's like, whether or not you like Donald Trump or not, you have a vote. Don't vote for him. But really here in America to try to prevent other people from having the opportunity to vote for that presidential candidate, that's a little questionable, Kurt.
I've always admired people like you, Kim, who will put on the rubber gloves and the swamp overalls and crawl into the swamp and get their hands dirty and see how and actually like get into how the sausage is made. I mean, you asked me to look at the federal budget process, and I looked into it, and it's just like, oh, this is why I've been avoiding this for the past 25 years of my adult life. It's messy, It's like how do you get things that you want, and the answer is like what you said, like, oh well, it's not just a vote, it's not a clean process at all. We'll write this to be 75%, so it's a higher hurdle. Yeah. Or, we don't want that guy in office, so we're going to throw a bunch of indictments at him. And I think they're playing with Trump. They're playing for the settlement where he says he's not going to run for office. That's the whole game, I think.
And then you have to. The next question is well, why don't they want him to run for office? And I think part of it is I think he understands the swamp. And he said that he wants to clean the swamp up. Dave
Chappelle on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. This video keeps popping up in my feed, and it's remarkable. He goes, I watched on stage 2016. You had a black man, President Obama, and Hillary Clinton, a woman, and they were saying, no, the system's not rigged, it's fine. And Donald Trump gets the microphone and says, the system's rigged, and I'll tell you how I know it. Because I've used it.
Oh, really?
And he says, in that moment, a star was born.
That's what Dave Chappelle said.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
It's stunning. I mean, the games that Trump plays, he knows. I try to teach you this, that he said something. If you want to attract eyeballs, if you want to gather a crowd, start a fight.
Well, I guess that's true. Yeah. Well, you might say that I am attracting eyeballs regarding the Republican operative consultant class. And I'm not calling them the donor class. That had been one of the things that I think people need to be careful of, because as I've gotten to know some of these big donors, I realize that these are businessmen and businesswomen that just want our country back. They just want to reclaim our state. And so the Republican operative consultants have relationships. They come in and they go, oh, this is the issue. This issue you need to get behind. Oh, this is the candidate you need to get behind. Write a check. But then guess what? The Republican operative consultants, they take a nice big cut as the money goes by, and they don't really care if the election is won or lost because they got their cut. And so I will just make a little correlation on the opting out. First of all, the Republican operative class and some of their elected, they're supposed to be representatives, but elected politicians ran a piece of legislation. It was Senate Bill 23-101, this was Republicans, which would have gutted the Assembly caucus process. So let's connect a dot then. And then that same Republican operative class has a petition gathering business, which if the only way you could get onto the ballot is via petition, then the price of those signatures just go up and they're just going to make a lot more money.
Imagine that if you follow the money.
Follow the money.
You know, a wise man once said, don't tell me your values, show me your budget. But, you know, I spent some time as a volunteer with the homeless and 3 months lived in a homeless shelter. And
when was that?
Was that?
When?
2004.
Okay, and question
maybe 2005.
is why?
For me, it was a religious devotion. I was doing what was called a pilgrimage.
Okay.
And it was it was an experiment. It's to get, our greatest happiness as humans does come when we're helping others. And so I was, in my 20s, I was trying to save the world in many forms, and I spent about a year in the Jesuit order of Catholic priests. I went to what we affectionately call the spiritual boot camp.
Okay.
And so this was one of the few things we did. I took a temporary vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, which is the opposite of money, sex, power. And
so you couldn't be in Congress then.
I often think, I really do, couldn't we make them take a vow of poverty? I can't get over the question of, like, how did they get rich? I mean, watching Pelosi trade the stock market like she's smarter than Warren Buffett, who's been doing it since he was 16, is the world's greatest investor of all time, and Pelosi beats him. Really? That corruption is so scary to me.
So anyway, homeless shelter.
Yes. So, what point was I making there, Kim?
Well, let's see. We were talking.
The industrial complexes or the incentives. If you ask, so this was, many years ago, and so whenever you see an injustice, ask yourself who's benefiting from that. And so I've come to understand that there's a homelessness industrial complex that is, people's jobs are helping the homeless. Well, do you think those people want homelessness to go away?
No. But back in 2004, it was not nearly the industrial complex that it is now. There's billions of dollars that's going to this now. And I wrote a piece on this many years ago. I'm trying to find it on the homelessness industrial complex. Yeah. And you're never going to solve the problem when there's so much money going towards it. And I was in a circumstances. So there's a group called the Catholic Workers, and you would love them for their radical Christianity. There's a line in Matthew that said, when, Jesus, did I clothe you? When did I feed you? When did I love you? And the answer, and Jesus says, whenever you did this to the least of my people. And so these radical Catholics, and God love them, literally, that they will just, they have an image of Christ of the breadlines. So they were formed in the Great Depression, and they would just feed anybody. That's their whole thing. They just feed anybody, and so full of love, and I get the chills thinking about it. On the other hand, they're communists. They're absolute socialists, and they just but they're the preferential option for the poor that the Catholic Church has is a beautiful thing, but you get I'll say this about giving. I should know the name of the person who first said this. The 5 stages of giving, and the first one is when you give somebody something, you create appreciation. The second time you give something to someone, you create an expectation. And by the time you get to the 5th one, we'll just jump right to it, you've created a dependency. And so it's charity is, we have to be careful with charity. Well, and Lincoln, I'm paraphrasing, I think it was Lincoln, he said, we should not be giving something to someone that they can do themselves. And a friend of mine said that many times treating other human beings like pets, basically feeding and clothing them, or saying that you're going to feed and clothe them, takes away the dignity of the individual. Kurt, you and I can agree that there is a small percentage of people that really may not be able to help themselves. They really do need help. But charity has done that. And this whole thing of giving, when government gives, that means they've taken something from somebody by force so they can give it to somebody else. That is not the proper role of government. This was not where we were going to go on this discussion.
Yeah,
but let's finish this up.
You mentioned the preamble to the Constitution earlier as like students may not be learning it, and I grabbed it for you. You might not like this. The purpose of the federal government, according to the preamble of the Constitution, establish justice.
Okay.
Ensure domestic tranquility.
Okay.
So that we can talk about how that's almost like a Chinese value. The Chinese really value harmony. They won't argue with each other the way we do. We think it's fun. They think it's chaotic. Okay. Provide for common defense. That one you do agree with. Promote the general welfare. That's where we get the word welfare from. Secure blessings of liberty to ourselves and posterity, meaning the future, like how we look historically towards in the future, how we will look.
Okay, so
it's
we're going to talk a little bit.
You got welfare in there. You got domestic tranquility. That's so you got to be peaceful.
Okay, well. The gauntlet has been thrown down by Professor Kurt Gerwitz, and I did want to talk about the Congress and funding as well. But I have in studio with me business and finance professor Kurt Gerwitz, and we're going to take on this general welfare when we come back, because that baby has been totally co-opted. And so you got me going here on a Monday morning because. The great discussions. And I want to mention the USMC Memorial Foundation, located out at the memorial's out at 6th and Colfax, dedicated in 1977. It is time for a remodel. My friends, as we see these movements to take down our memorials and rename things, we must continue to understand, appreciate our history. We need to honor those that have been willing to give their lives or given their lives for our freedom. Now, I understand all the politics around a lot of different things over the years, but the fact that everyday people have stepped forward to fight tyranny and stand for liberty for us, we need to honor that. And you can help out by going to usmcmemorialfoundation.org. That's usmcmemorialfoundation.org. And you know what? I'm looking at this. I don't think I finished, Kurt, my thought. I'm taking this course with Dr. Jack. We got on to something else. But so he's put together these courses to partner great instructors with those that are intellectually curious. And I'm taking this course, and it is Literature as Resistance. And so we're going to be reading 1984, Fahrenheit 451, which I guess 451 degrees is where paper burns.
Right. It's the combustion temperature.
Okay. Let's see. Did I say Brave New World? And we're going to watch a movie from the 1920s, Metropolis. So it's going to be super interesting. So anyway, check out ipac-edu.org. That's ipac-edu.org. I just have so many things going on in this brain. I don't know what to say.
IPAC is spelled with a K.
Right. ipac-edu.org. Okay. Okay, and again, I get to work with wonderful sponsors, and one of those is Johnny Stubbs Heating and Air Conditioning Services. And we did our big rollout of our documentary, A Climate Conversation, here in Colorado last Thursday. And again, thank you very much to Rockley's Event Center, where we had the event, and also to Jansen Photography. Glenn Jansen was out there. But what really matters many times is just your own personal climate. And who can help with that is Johnny Stubbs Heating and Air Conditioning Services.
Johnny Stubbs Services uses only the best quality products to ensure that your heating and cooling systems run efficiently and last for years. Johnny Stubbs Services' team of experts is available to provide the proper guidance and help you make informed decisions about your heating and cooling needs. Johnny Stubbs Services prides themselves on delivering prompt and reliable service and stands behind their work with a satisfaction guarantee. JohnnyStubbsServices.com, the trusted contractor for all your heating and air conditioning needs. That's JohnnyStubbsServices.com.
If you are 62 or older, a reverse mortgage could be a great tool regarding retirement and estate planning. It is essential to understand the process. Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry and has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, Call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Licensed in 49 states, Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
Our future depends on educated, informed, and active citizens. You could do your part by reading Dr. James Lyons Weiler's latest articles at Popular Rationalism on Substack. That's popularrationalism.substack.com.
Focused and wise marketing is essential for your success, especially during tough economic times. If you love The Kim Monson Show, strive for excellence and understand the importance of engaging in the battle of ideas that is raging in America, then talk with Kim about partnership, sponsorship opportunities. Email Kim at kimmonson.com. Kim focuses on creating relationships with individuals and businesses that are tops in their fields. So they are the trusted experts listeners turn to when looking for products or services. Kim personally endorses each of her sponsors. Again, reach out to Kim at kimmonson.com.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Check out our website. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. In studio with me is, I'm just laughing just because we have so much to talk about with Kurt Gerwitz, business and finance professor, but several things coming in on the text line. First of all, regarding our question about the half vote on the 143.5, it is multiple, this is from Patty, multiple vice chairs in counties can have fractional votes. So if you had a lot of different vice chairs, I guess that's the way they figure it out.
The average family in the United States has 2-point-something children. Let's call it 2.3 children. I always wonder about that 0.3.
I wonder, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Next thing here. Okay. This is a question. How does opting out of open primaries help the GOP win elections? Clearly, they do not want to win. Where will they go when America falls? Ooh.
So that argument there is that. And this circles back to the what happened over the weekend. Okay. Is that the Speaker of the House,
Kevin McCarthy?
Yes. So he made a decision, and his hand was forced by his incentives, that he chose to go with the Democrats to get this 45-day budget passed instead of going with the Republicans who were really wanted to see 30% cut in discretionary spending outside of military. They wanted to see strong immigration actions. They did actually, and as it turned out, we are leaving out the Ukraine support out of this budget. And what was I saying there?
Well, okay, regarding that, clearly they don't want to win elections. And that is what I've come to find out is that this operative class, consultant Republican operative class, would rather fight with Republicans than fight with these radical activist Democrats.
Well, that's the sausage getting made that we mentioned at the top of the hour. It's so ugly. So it's a question of if you win the primary with Republicans, you got to be the most Republican. But if you want to win the general with the independents and even some Democrats coming over and voting, you've got to be like center. And so there's the mix up.
Okay, and I hear that, but I think, Kurt, that I think if somebody is able to really articulate this idea of America, that first of all, we treat everybody equal because we are equal. We were created equal. If we have that, and then that we protect life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I mean, I think the veil is coming off of this radical activist Democrats and where we're headed, then I think that if somebody can message it and really mean it instead of just saying it, I think maybe we could win elections.
Is that you, Kim? Are you going to run?
No. Do you know you're the second person in a week that's asked me, and I'm like, no. I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Okay, let's continue on. Okay, immigration. This is beyond me. that they would not figure out a way to secure our borders, that we would not have Kevin McCarthy all over that. I mean, that's going to win with Republicans, Democrats, and unaffiliateds who seeing their towns just run over by this terrible policy.
It's a political pawn, like meaning that they'll sacrifice it. The Democrats won't, as I understand it, they won't come to the table on immigration unless they get guarantees on things that the Republicans just absolutely won't give them. And so they won't. So we have this stalemate, and the people hate when our politicians do this, when they can't solve something that's important to all of us. No one that I've ever asked is really believes that we should not have a border. Everyone thinks that we should have legal immigration that makes sense, and we don't. And it's just like healthcare. We can't solve healthcare. We can't solve immigration. It's like, what are these clowns doing?
We can, but they don't want to.
And they don't want to because they want something else.
Okay,
And
you've nailed it. So
yes.
let's talk about Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's right. So they want Ukraine. So I'm mixed. I have mixed feelings on the Ukraine. I know that 90% of Republicans do not support our efforts in Ukraine. There's an argument that
can I just stop right there? What do we see here? We see Democrats wanting to fund a war, and many Republicans saying, "No, we don't want to do that."
We flipped from the first Cold War to whatever version of the Cold War we're still in. Or that's the thing about humans, man. We get stuck in our culture.
Yeah,
like we ended the Cold War. Putin said, "What would it take for me to get into NATO?" Imagine that. We would have peace everywhere if Russia and the United States were like holding hands and like doing capitalism correctly. And then we said, well, you really can never, because we don't know how to think like that. And then NATO crept into Ukraine, and Putin's like, that's my backyard. That's like putting missiles into Cuba. Like, we would draw a line and say no, and Putin.
Well, we used to.
Yeah, Putin drew a line and said no, and then he invaded. He said, you guys can't, and so America has made some missteps. Like, we've been kind of stomping on his territory and in his sphere of influence, and we just decided that no, this is the creep of Europe and the Western civilization in it, and I would argue that's a good thing. So it's a complicated issue.
But Zelensky, I don't think it has halo and angel wings.
He was a high school teacher, and I got respect for that because I did that. My wife was a high school teacher for 10 years. I did it for 2.
Yeah, I thought he was a performer as well.
Right. So that's the thing about him, is he understands his role as hero, and so he's not. This is why they're still in the fight. Is Putin, a normal politician who would not send their own children to war? Zelensky's not a normal politician. He knows that he's like a symbol. And so that's why they've been able to stand up against a juggernaut like Russia. But we seem to be so willing to let these Ukrainians die and to send our there's an argument that we're sending our military inventory over there, which is good because then it's going to clean out our inventory, and we're realizing that we don't have the manufacturing capacities that we need.
Kurt, but a little problem with that, and that's called China. If we're like, well, please don't invade our country. Just please, please, please. Of course, the invasion, our country is being invaded from the southern border and also intellectually. It's been happening for quite some time. But so anyway, you had mentioned that Colorado senator had a tissy fit. Yeah,
Bennett threw a temper tantrum when he didn't see support for Ukraine in this 45-day bill, and what soothed his precious little heart was that the Republicans they promised that they will get together with the Democrats in the next, because we don't have 45 days of funding for the Ukraine war, and Zelensky's throwing a little temper tantrum himself. And so they said, look, we'll put it on paper, we'll write it down that we will have this conversation, but right now it is midnight. It is an hour before midnight, and if we don't fund the government, then we'll have the shutdown. There's 4 million federal employees. There's 2 million active military that would suffer. And it's just, to me, it's an observation on human nature and negotiations that things get done at deadlines.
Well, but nothing's getting done regarding the border. And I know one of our listeners, I mean, he's all over that this morning. Let me just check something here. Okay.
While you're checking that, I have a few words I need to say about the deficit spending.
Okay.
It just doesn't make any sense to me what we're doing. In the last 50 years, only 5 times have we had a budget surplus. So the most recent time that we had a budget surplus was 2001 when I graduated undergrad. So that's 22 years ago. In the past 22 years, have we had a major global crisis such as World War II? We are currently we have a budget deficit that looks like we're in World War II right now. Mm-hmm. And are these good investments? I mean, so we're spending depending on who you ask, between $6 and $8 trillion is how much we're spending. And it used to be like hundreds of billions was untouchable, and now we're in the T trillions. So I'm always going to play this game with you, Kim. If you had 1 million pennies, how high would it stack? We're going to say 1 mile high. Okay, that's 1 million pennies. We can imagine a mile high. It's the distance from here to New Orleans and altitude. 1 billion pennies is 870 miles high.
Okay.
So that's the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, 870 miles high. So you're in outer space at that point. 1 trillion pennies, 870,000 miles. So that's to the moon and back and to the moon again. So I'm trying to my mission and purpose in life is to, is financial education. We've got to get this numeracy. And so people's eyes don't just glaze over when we talk about, just a couple billion for this, just a couple billion for that. Now we're starting to use the T word, trillion.
Yeah. Well, and I will have them on regularly, and that is the group, the Center for Renewing America. And they said that if we got rid of all the woke spending, pushing the woke agenda that is being funded through grants and all kinds of different things through our federal government, we could have a balanced budget within 10 years. We could do it.
Yeah, and here's my nightmare, is that over the next 12 months, 30% of our debt as a country, it needs to be re-upped, refinanced.
At these new interest rates.
And that's the thing, is we've had ZIRP, zero interest rate policy. We've had very low interest rates since I've come out of my MBA program, since I was a baby in finance. Mm-hmm. And so no one knows how to even think about high interest rates anymore, so it's kind of interesting there. But yeah, when we refinanced 30% of that debt, this month was the first time in history, or since I can remember, our interest payments, right now, as we sit here, our interest payments are more than we spend on the military in the United States.
Boy, talk about not getting our priorities right. But boy, they got 45 days of funding here, and Senator Bennett had made sure that there's going to be some funding for Ukraine. Meanwhile, down at the border, we have people coming across that these PBIs, politicians and bureaucrats and interested parties, will want to tax everyday hardworking citizens to pay for all the benefits for the people coming across the border. I'm talking with Professor Kurt Gerwitz. These are such important conversations, and we get to have them because of great sponsors. One of those is John Boson with Boson Law.
A recent report notes that the number of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder is consistently and dramatically increasing. This is heartbreaking. If your child or grandchild or someone you know has been diagnosed with autism or ADHD following exposure to Tylenol or acetaminophen during pregnancy, call Boson Law at 303-999-9999. Boson Law is a Colorado-based law firm who has been fighting Big Pharma for over 20 years. Call now at 303-999-9999 for a free, no-obligation review of your potential claim. Call now at 303-999-9999.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
Franktown Firearms and Shooting Range keep their firearm and ammunition inventory up so you can get the lowest price at the best tax rate. Across the nation, inventory is down and sales are at record levels, leading consumers to pay higher prices at other businesses. Franktown brings in new items every week, which translates to lower pricing on your purchase. There are millions of first-time gun owners purchasing each year, showing that the demand is growing, and prices are rising to meet that demand. Whether you're looking for a self-defense carry, hunting game, or using your firearms and ammunition for pest control, the folks at Franktown are fully stocked and ready to get you the right firearm at the right price. And this family-owned, family-operated gun store and range is proud to have the lowest tax rate possible, saving you even more. Find out more about Franktown Firearms at klzradio.com/Franktown today and fill out the form to get half off your initiation fee on membership. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Of course, taxation is force. I'll just plant that little seed there. Thank you to the Harris family for their sponsorship of the show, and thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their sponsorship of the show as well. And want to mention the Center for American Values. It is a non-political organization focused on two things: honoring our Medal of Honor recipients and also creating programs for school-age kids, but also, I think, in teaching them also for us as adults that teaches these foundational values of honor, integrity, and patriotism. They just rolled out recently a new K-12 civics course online, and so be sure and check that out at AmericanValueCenter.org. That's AmericanValueCenter.org. Okay, let's see. Next thing, Kurt, you've got a couple of things. I'm talking with Kurt Gerwitz, finance and business professor. There's a couple of things that you wanted to let people know about.
I always want to talk about the best in finance and investments class in all of Colorado over at Regis University, and it's the capstone of the MBA course where you specialize, if you specialize in finance, which we do have a undersupply of financially skilled professionals, so you should come in. And we do a deep dive on a publicly traded company that's headquartered in Colorado. We've got about between 100 and 130 publicly traded companies in Colorado. Of the 10,000 that are publicly traded in the United States, 100 of them are here. And you can come learn about one in a deep dive. But I also have started to talk about them as a group. So that's my first plug. My second plug.
And can people get them, these reports?
Yes, the reports are free and publicly available. And the best way to find them would be to Google search Anderson Reports at Regis.
Anderson with an A or Anderson?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm confident that even if you misspelled it, Google will correct you and find.
Of course it will.
We do have a website, and I'm super excited. There are 4 reports up there. I love telling these stories of these they're nationally, internationally significant companies, and they're in our backyard.
Mm-hmm. And so again, AndersonReports.com.
No, I don't have that yet.
Oh.
Anderson Reports, just Google search or DuckDuckGo search Anderson Reports at Regis, and the new website comes up there.
Got it. Okay. And then you had a second item.
I do, and maybe a third. But the second item will be I have taken a job as a consultant for the SBDC. So
SBDC is what?
SBDC is the Small Business Development Center.
Okay.
In Colorado, there are, I'm going to say 14 of them, all dispersed geographically all over the state. And in the United States, there's like 1,000 of these. This is a government program that provides. Yeah, you're welcome. This is your tax dollars at work, and so I'm getting paid by the tax dollar here. They get 50% of their funding from the SBA, the Small Business Administration. This is industrial policy to promote startups. So anybody who has an idea, or you may already have revenue or not, you can get a free hour with me by going to Denver SBDC and signing up for the free consulting that we do. It's actually tremendous, and they'll not me, but someone else will give you a free hour of legal consulting. That's really nice. And the other thing that they do is low-cost training. So it's subsidized training on skills such as, the financial skills that you'll need to run a company, but also the marketing and the how to do business with, internationally, or how to become a government contractor. So lots of different ways to get trained up to be an entrepreneur. So if you've got that idea, let's have a conversation.
Okay. And then the next thing?
I'll do the third one. I put the recordings of our conversations of this show. I put them up on my YouTube channel, and so you can follow our thread, just the relationship between Kim and I as we embark in this journey of learning together. They go up. I'm putting them up on my YouTube channel, and you just got to search for me, Kurt Gerwitz. There's one other Kurt Gerwitz in the United States, some professor in California, but he's older than me, so has less of an internet footprint than I do. You'll find me, K Gerwitz. Even if you misspell it, I suspect I'll show up.
And it's Gerwitz. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. General welfare. I have pulled out my Constitution, Kurt Gerwitz. And when it says in the Constitution, general welfare, which I know has now been used by PBIs to take money from one person for government programs for welfare for others, that's not what they meant. They meant general welfare. And the perfect example, and I used this when I voted no against the Southeast Light Rail extension, which was over $200 million for 2.3 miles. And there was a $92 million New Starts grant coming in from the Obama administration, which you connect the dots. They wanted to get these trains built so ultimately they can take away people's freedom of mobility and get them out of cars and put them on trains and buses and bicycles and walking around, fast forward to 15-minute cities. But what I base this on, and this was from John Eastman, a great constitutional professor, was he said that what the founders meant was general welfare was something that benefited the whole country. So there was a president back in the 1800s that vetoed funding that Congress had approved for a road in the Cumberland Gap because it benefited them regionally, not generally. But that they did approve funding for lighthouses up and down the eastern seaboard so that the commerce that would come in via the safety of these lighthouses would actually benefit the general public. So it's not welfare, it's general that I think that we really should be focusing on. You've got a minute to respond.
Well, Kim, you could not be more wrong about trains. Trains are romantic. They get us out of our cars. They, I don't feel like I have the liberty. I don't have the choice in my life between owning a car or taking the train. I have to own a car, and that's been American economic policy for way too long. Cars make us
for way too long.
Yeah, it's the American suburbs are the greatest misappropriation of resources in history, and that includes our world wars. And the
you better be careful if you want to get
I'm going to lose
back.
all those compliments I got from your listeners are coming. They're like, I was wrong about him. He's an idiot. No, cars make us. They make us psychologically evil. We have when you get in your car and you get car brain, and you think that pedestrian or that bicycle in front of you is actually slowing you up, but on your 15-minute ride, it's not even 1 or 2 minutes. But you feel differently about that, and you hate everybody else in the car. We'll pick this up another time if you like.
We'll pick this up, Kurt Gerwitz. Let me just put it this way: I think freedom of mobility, which is ultimately what cars offer us, is something that people should have the choice. And when you see government money that is being used to assault that freedom of mobility, that is not okay. So we'll keep that as a cliffhanger for, okay, you can come back next month, but we'll have to take this on. So my friends, Hayek said this: there's all the difference in the world between treating people equally and attempting to make them equal. So my friends, today be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America.
The views views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.